Aliens destroyed a human colony. Every Terran gun fired, and the galaxy burned. The colony of New Horizons sat under a pale blue sky, quiet and alive. It was not a rich world, not famous, and not important to the wider galaxy. It was important only to the people who lived there. Farmers worked wide fields. Engineers maintained power towers. Children ran between low buildings while ships moved slowly in orbit above. New Horizon was built by ordinary humans who wanted space, safety, and a future. It was far from Earth, far from politics and war. There were no large weapons platforms, no heavy fleets. Only a small defense force meant to deal with pirates or accidents, not invasion. Governor John Carter watched the sunrise from the balcony of the administration dome. He liked mornings. They reminded him why he had left Earth. The quiet, the sense of starting something new. Below him, the city was waking up. "A status report," he said calmly. A young aide beside him checked a tablet. "Weather stable. Crops are on schedule. No unusual traffic in orbit." Carter nodded. "Good. Keep it that way." In the lower levels of the city, Lisa Brown adjusted a power relay inside a residential block. She wiped sweat from her face and smiled as the lights flickered back on. "All set," she said to the family watching her. "Should be steady now." "Thank you," the woman replied. "You engineers keep this place alive." Lisa shrugged. "We all do." At the Colony Medical Center, Amy Turner finished checking supplies. She was a medic with the local militia, trained for accidents and emergencies. Most days were quiet. Broken bones, equipment injuries, heat sickness. She hoped it stayed that way. "You're jumpy today," said her friend Kevin Ross, another medic. Amy shook her head. "Just a feeling, probably nothing." In orbit, Captain Eric Nolan floated on the bridge of a small defense ship. It was old, but reliable. His crew was relaxed, joking quietly as they ran routine scans. "Nothing on long range," said the sensor officer. "Just empty space." Nolan nodded. "Keep watching. Space likes to surprise you when you stop paying attention." No one argued. But no one truly expected trouble. The first sign came as a distortion in deep space. Not close enough to be seen with the eye, but clear on sensors. A ripple, then another. "Captain," the sensor officer said slowly, "I'm reading multiple contacts, unknown drive signatures." Nolan straightened. "How many?" "More than 20. Maybe more." "Are they responding to hails?" The officer shook his head. No response. On the surface, alarms began to sound softly, unsure at first, like the colony itself was confused. People looked up. The sky darkened as shapes appeared, massive and wrong. Lisa stepped outside and froze. Huge ships slid through the clouds, dark and angular. They blocked the sun. "That's not ours," someone whispered. Governor Carter stared at the screens in disbelief. "Identify those ships," he demanded. The communications officer tried again and again. "No response, sir. They are ignoring all signals." The ships moved into position with calm precision. Then they fired. The first strike erased the orbital docks. Explosions blossomed like flowers of fire. Debris rained down into the atmosphere. Defense ships tried to respond, but they were slow, weak, and outmatched. Captain Nolan shouted orders. "Return fire! Protect the surface." His ship fired everything it had. The shots barely scratched enemy shields. "They're too strong!" someone yelled. Another blast tore through a nearby human ship. It broke apart silently. On the ground, the city shook. Buildings collapsed. Power grids failed. People ran in every direction, screaming. Lisa was thrown to the ground as a shockwave rolled through the street. Glass shattered. The sky burned. "Get inside!" she yelled, pulling a child with her. Amy Turner rushed through the medical center as wounded colonists poured in. Burns, broken limbs, blood everywhere. The center lost power. Emergency lights flickered on. "Triage now," Amy shouted. "Move, move!" She worked without thinking, hands steady, heart racing. Governor Carter tried to reach Earth. The signal barely escaped before a beam of energy struck the administration dome. The upper levels vanished in fire. In orbit, Captain Nolan's ship was failing. Systems went dark, one by one. The enemy ships did not rush. They destroyed methodically. They're not fighting us, Nolan realized. They're erasing us. His ship took a direct hit. Alarm screamed. The hull ruptured. Abandon ship, he ordered. Send the distress signal now. A small automated beacon launched into space, carrying images, data, and the truth of what was happening. On the surface, the attacks continued. Cities burned. Farms were turned to ash. Escape ships tried to launch only to be destroyed seconds later. Lisa helped people into a shelter as the ground trembled. She knew it would not hold forever. "Why are they doing this?" someone cried. No one answered. Amy worked until her hands were covered in blood. She saw children, elders, friends. She saved some. She lost many. "Medic!" someone shouted. She turned, already moving. Above them all, the alien fleet broadcast a message. It played on every remaining screen, every damaged speaker. A tall armored figure appeared. Its voice was cold and clear. "Humans of New Horizon, your presence is an error. Your expansion ends here. Your species is weak. This colony will be an example. Do not rebuild. Do not resist." Then the transmission ended. Captain Nolan's escape pod launched as his ship exploded. He watched the colony burn through a small window, helpless. "We were never a threat," he whispered. The attacks lasted for hours. When they ended, nothing remained intact. Cities were gone, infrastructure destroyed. The sky cleared as the alien ships departed, leaving silence behind. Fires burned across the planet. The air was thick with smoke and ash. Lisa crawled from the wreckage of the shelter. Everything she knew was gone. She stood alone among ruins, eyes empty. Amy sat against a broken wall, exhausted, surrounded by bodies she could not save. Far above, Captain Nolan drifted in darkness, injured but alive, his pod barely functioning. The colony of New Horizon was dead. Days later, silence ruled the planet. Automated systems failed one by one. Survivors were few and scattered. No help came. No messages returned. But far away, moving through the cold between stars, the distress signal traveled on. It carried images of fire, of cities dying, of civilians screaming. It carried the alien message. It carried proof. And when it reached human space, everything would change. New Horizon was gone. But humanity was not. The news of New Horizon did not reach Earth with noise or panic. It arrived as a thin stream of data, quiet and broken, like a dying voice. The signal crossed empty space for weeks before it reached the outer relays of human territory. By then, the colony was already dust. The first people to see the message were technicians on a listening station near Mars. They expected trade logs or weather reports. Instead, they saw fire. Cities burning. Orbital rings breaking apart. Civilians running and vanishing in white light. The final images showed alien ships hanging in the sky, calm and untouched. The technicians did not speak at first. One of them sent the file up the chain. Then another. Within hours, every major command center on Earth had the same images. For a full day, there was no public announcement. On Earth, life went on in small ways. People went to work. Children went to school. Ships landed and took off. But inside government halls and military rooms, silence grew heavy. Admiral John Miller stood in a secure briefing room, watching the recording for the 5th time. He did not sit. He did not blink much either. His hair was gray, his face hard from years of command, but his hands shook slightly as the final frame froze on the screen. New Horizon had been a civilian world. Farms, research stations, families. No major fleet, no threat. Someone behind him cleared their throat. No one spoke. Miller finally turned. "How many confirmed dead?" A calm voice answered. "Estimates are 1.2 million, likely higher." Miller nodded once. "Any survivors?" A few escape pods may have cleared the system. No confirmed contact yet. Another officer spoke. The attackers identify themselves as the Car Dominion. Multiple species. Strong fleet presence. Miller looked back at the screen.
They sent a message.
Yes, sir. They declared humanity weak and warned us to stay within our core systems. For a moment, someone almost laughed. It came out as a short breath instead. Miller did not react. He walked to the table and placed both hands on it. Seal this room. Activate Protocol Ashfall. The room went still. Protocol Ashfall was old, older than most people in the room. It was written during humanity's first steps into deep space, when no one knew what waited beyond the stars. It was not a plan for winning. It was a plan for surviving by any means. Across Earth and its colonies, quiet commands went out. Reserve fleets were called home. Shipyards that built cargo vessels received new orders. Factories that made mining tools began to shape weapons instead. There were no speeches, no public rage, just movement. Claire Bennett sat alone in a small analysis lab beneath Luna. She had dark circles under her eyes and had not slept much since the footage arrived. She replayed fragments of the battle again and again, slowing them down, marking patterns. The car ships were advanced but not perfect. Their shields flickered under sustained fire. Their formations favored control over flexibility. They expected fear. They expected retreat. "You don't know us," Claire whispered to the screen. She sent her findings to Fleet Command. Not with anger, but with care. This was not theory. This was personal. On Earth, the government met behind closed doors. Old arguments vanished. Borders stopped mattering. Parties dissolved into a single vote. There was no debate about if they should respond. Only how far. The decision was simple. No negotiation, no warning, no limited strike. Human space would become a forge. Civilian channels went dark. Long-range communication was restricted. Rumors spread, but no one had the full picture. People felt it anyway. Something heavy was coming. In a quiet apartment in Chicago, a dock worker named Paul Ramirez watched the sky through a window. He did not know about Protocol Ashfall. He only knew that his job had changed overnight. Ships that once carried food now carried armor, and no one complained. "They hurt our people," someone said at the docks. That was enough. Admiral Miller addressed fleet leaders through a secure link. Dozens of faces filled the screen, men and women from different worlds and backgrounds. "New Horizon was not a battlefield," Miller said. His voice was calm, almost soft. "It was a home. They destroyed it to make a point." He paused. "Now we make ours." Orders flowed outward. Not dramatic. Precise. Human fleets would not rush in blind. They would spread, gather, and strike where it hurt most. Deep in space, a small escape pod drifted between stars. Inside, Captain Eric Nolan floated in silence. His body was bruised. His left arm was broken and strapped tight. The pod's power was low, but life support held. He had watched New Horizon die from orbit. He had fired until his guns melted. Then he had been thrown into the dark. When a human patrol ship found him days later, he did not cheer. He only asked one question. "Did Earth hear us?" The medic nodded. Yes. Eric closed his eyes. That was enough. Back on Luna, Claire met with engineers and tacticians. She explained what she had seen. Human ships could not match the car in elegance or speed, but they did not need to. "We outlast them," she said. "We hit them again and again. We don't stop when it hurts." Someone frowned. "Casualties." Claire met his eyes. They already chose that. Training bases filled with new recruits. Some were soldiers, many were not. Miners, pilots, mechanics. People who had never held a weapon learned fast. Instructors did not shout. They did not need to. Everyone had seen the footage. On Mars, an old factory reopened. It had once made colony shelters. Now it built armor plates thick enough to stop plasma fire. Sparks flew day and night. The car Dominion waited. Their leaders believed humanity would fracture. They had studied other species. When faced with loss, most turned inward. Some begged. Some fled. Weeks passed. No response came from Earth. Car scouts reported strange movements at the edges of human space, but nothing direct. No fleet massing. No challenge. The Dominion Council relaxed. They are afraid, one commander said. They will stay small. They did not know about Ashfall. They did not know that human silence was never surrender. Admiral Miller walked through a hangar as ships were refitted. Hulls bore scars from old missions. Crews worked with quiet focus. No one joked. He stopped beside a pilot named Jake Holloway, who was checking a weapon mount. First combat? Miller asked. Jake nodded. Yes, sir. Scared? Jake thought for a moment. Angry. Miller nodded. Keep it controlled. As days turned into weeks, human space changed. It became sharper, faster, united. News of New Horizon was finally released to the public. There was no censorship of the images. People saw everything. There were protests at first, then silence, then lines at recruitment centers. On a small farm world, a woman named Lisa Brown watched the broadcast with tears in her eyes. She had family on New Horizon, no bodies to bury, no graves. She sent a message to the Reconstruction Corps not to fight. To rebuild one day, the galaxy watched from a distance. Other species whispered. Some were uneasy. Some were pleased. A weak power had been put in its place, they thought. They did not understand humans yet. In the final meeting before the fleets moved, Miller stood alone for a moment. He looked at a small plaque on the wall. It listed lost colonies from early expansion. Names few remembered. We are still here, he said quietly. When he turned back to the command table, the room was ready. Ships powered up across dozens of systems. Engines warmed. Weapons charged. Humanity did not roar. It moved. And somewhere beyond the stars, the Car Dominion would soon learn that silence was not peace, and patience was not fear. The fleets moved quietly at first. Across human space, ships left dry docks, their hulls shining under artificial lights. Crews were nervous, but their hands were steady. They had trained, drilled, and seen the destruction of New Horizon enough times to know what awaited them. They were not soldiers from movies or stories. They were humans, ordinary people, made extraordinary by loss. Captain Eric Nolan walked along the deck of the flagship, the Horizon's Edge, checking every crew member. He nodded to pilots, engineers, and gunners. Remember why we fight, he said softly. It is not glory. It is not conquest. It is survival. And it is justice. The young pilot beside him, Rachel Morris, swallowed hard. She had joined the fleet after seeing her home station destroyed in a minor raid years earlier. This would be her first real fight. We won't stop, she asked quietly. We never stop, Nolan said. He looked at the stars ahead. Not until they know humanity is not fragile. The first strike was not dramatic. A small convoy moved into a car-controlled system. The humans did not announce themselves. They did not give warnings. They simply arrived. The car scouts saw them and assumed a small patrol. Unimportant. They were wrong. Human ships dispersed quickly, using irregular patterns that confused the enemy sensors. They struck supply depots, shipyards, and communications hubs. Explosions lit the orbital space like fireworks, but each strike was precise. Civilian structures were left untouched. The humans were not here to scare colonies, only to punish those who had killed innocents. Back on Earth, people watched the news feeds with a mixture of fear and pride. Unlike any other war, the humans did not speak of destruction alone. They spoke of endurance, of precision, of turning grief into action. Captain Nolan's fleet encountered the first real resistance at a mining station turned military outpost. Car ships were faster and more numerous. Their energy weapons scorched the hulls of human ships. For a moment, the humans staggered. But then their strategy revealed itself. The fleets did not rely on individual heroism. They relied on coordination. Every move, every shot, every maneuver was part of a larger plan. Small teams disabled shields while others fired at engines. Boarding pods struck from unexpected angles, allowing engineers to sabotage weapons before they could fire again. Lieutenant Amy Foster, a boarding officer, led her team through dark corridors of a car ship. She felt fear, but pushed it down. They had seen what the car did to New Horizon. Fear was a luxury humans could not afford. "We move fast, we move together," she whispered to her crew. "We don't give them time to breathe." They reached the control room. A few swift moves and the station's weapons went dark. Communications were cut. The humans left no one alive to warn others. The car learned their first lesson. Humanity could not be intimidated. The news spread across human networks. Each victory, small but methodical, gave people hope. Soldiers, engineers, civilians, miners, pilots all felt a new pride. Humanity's rage had become a tool, and it was precise. In another system, Claire Bennett and her team worked tirelessly. They analyzed every intercepted car signal, looking for patterns, weak points, anything humans could exploit. She discovered that the car relied heavily on centralized command nodes. Disrupt those, and the fleet could be paralyzed for hours. "We hit them hard here," she said to Admiral Miller, pointing at the display. "We cut their eyes and ears first. They won't know what's coming." Miller nodded. "Good. Coordinate with the strike teams. Time is critical." In the battlefield, Paul Ramirez, once a dock worker, now a gunnery officer, found himself in the thick of combat. He had never wanted a gun, but now every pull of the trigger felt like justice. He aimed at energy turrets that threatened human ships, counting the seconds until they were destroyed. "Keep firing!" he yelled. Every second counts. Human fleets were different from anything the car had faced. They adapted. They improvised. When a ship was lost, another took its place. When an ambush failed, humans analyzed it instantly and used the same strategy against the enemy the next day. The car commanders grew frustrated. They were used to fighting species who ran when beaten or begged for mercy. Humans did neither. They suffered losses and advanced anyway. Every setback made them stronger. "They are relentless," one car admiral said, his voice trembling. "They do not fear death. They do not retreat. They attack with everything they have." "Captain Nolan received a transmission from Earth." The message was short. "Expand the strike radius. Strike every strategic target. Civilians must not be harmed. Every car military installation is legitimate. Humanity does not negotiate with murderers." Nolan understood. The war had changed. No longer was it a single vengeance strike. Now it was a galaxy-wide campaign. The humans had the advantage of strategy, resilience, and unity. On one of the destroyed outposts, Lieutenant Amy Foster walked among the ruins with her team. They had cleared the station, but the damage was immense. She knelt beside a small control panel and activated a recorder. "We are human," she said into the device. "We do not forget. We do not forget easily. Your attacks against our people will not go unanswered. Every weapon you fire at us will meet fire in return." She stood, her team silent behind her. This was not bravado. It was truth. Claire Bennett discovered a larger pattern in the car fleet movements. Their forces were spread thin, defending too many systems at once. Humans could exploit this. Smaller fleets could strike multiple systems almost simultaneously, leaving the car scrambling. "We hit them everywhere," she said, showing the maps to Admiral Miller. "We force them to react. They cannot predict us. They cannot regroup in time." And so humans did. Fleets appeared in systems the car thought safe. Supply lines vanished. Mining operations were destroyed before they could fully prepare. Communications networks fell under human attack. In the middle of one battle, pilot Rachel Morris faced overwhelming odds. Her fighter was damaged, shields failing. The car ship pursued her relentlessly. She remembered Eric Nolan's words, "We never stop." With quick thinking, she lured the car into a trap. Hidden human ships fired from behind asteroids, disabling the enemy vessel. She felt no thrill, only focus. The car had underestimated her. Humanity had underestimated nothing. The car dominion began to crumble. Allied species whispered about withdrawal, about surrender. Fear grew in their ranks, but pride and anger kept them fighting. They could not comprehend humans. They did not understand that humans did not fight for empire, for glory, or for honor alone. They fought because their people had been destroyed, and they would not allow it again. Captain Nolan's fleet moved toward a larger care base. The humans had learned to coordinate multiple attacks at once, combining energy strikes, boarding actions, and sabotage. Engineers in orbit disrupted shield generators. Boarding teams disabled weapons. Pilots blocked reinforcements. Human losses were real but carefully calculated. Every death fueled the resolve of the rest. Each survivor carried the memory of New Horizon, of friends, family, and colleagues lost. Admiral Miller watched reports flood in. Human forces were striking at the heart of the Dominion's power. The car did not expect such speed, such coordination, such endurance. Every mistake they made was met immediately with counteraction. They will learn, Miller said quietly, looking at the stars. They will learn that humans do not break easily. We do not bow. We do not surrender. Back on Earth, civilians waited for news with anxious hearts. When reports of victories arrived, there was quiet celebration. No parades. No shouting. Only the knowledge that humanity was alive and fighting back. The war was only beginning, but the message was clear. Humans were everywhere now, and they would not stop until justice was served. In a command room on the horizon's edge, Captain Nolan stood with Amy Foster, Rachel Morris, and Paul Ramirez. They watched the map showing every human fleet in motion, every car system under pressure. They thought silence meant weakness, Nolan said. We are anything but weak. Amy nodded. Every system, every ship, every weapon. They will feel us. Paul grinned. I like the sound of that. Rachel's eyes were steady. They will know we are human. As human ships struck again and again, the car Dominion realized their mistake. Humanity was not a threat to be bargained with. Humanity was a storm, slow, relentless, and impossible to ignore. The galaxy watched in fear and awe. Other species began to take note. Humans had no empire, no alliances yet mattered. All they had was will, and that was enough. Captain Nolan looked at his crew one last time before the next engagement. Remember New Horizon. Remember every life lost. Fight smart, fight together, and fire every weapon we have. The galaxy will learn who we are. The ships moved forward. Engines hummed, weapons charged, and human determination stretched across the stars. The first real fires of retaliation had begun, and no one could stop them now. The human fleets moved like a wave across car territory. Every star system that had been touched by the car's violence now trembled under human fire. Ships that once carried peaceful supplies now carried weapons, pilots, and crews ready for action. Humanity's anger had become unstoppable. Captain Eric Nolan stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge. He watched the stars pass by at faster-than-light speed, the displays lighting up with target markers, enemy positions, and strike zones. Beside him, Lieutenant Amy Foster checked her team's readiness. Every boarding pod, every shuttle, every weapon system was prepped. They will know we are coming, Amy said quietly. Nolan nodded. They will know.
And it will be too late. Their first target was a large car military station in the Ceres sector.
It was well defended, with multiple shield generators, heavy turrets, and dozens of patrol ships. Intelligence had warned the humans that this would be a stronghold, but humans did not fear strongholds. Humans did not fear anything. The attack began at night, from the planet's shadow. Human fighters streaked in first, drawing fire and confusing the car sensors. Then came the larger ships, spreading across the system in coordinated patterns. Energy beams lanced the darkness, hitting shields, hulls, and power grids. Explosions lit the orbit like artificial suns. Amy Foster's boarding team dropped from orbit in small pods. They hit the station from multiple sides, bypassing security and cutting power to the turrets. Every move had been rehearsed in simulations, but nothing could replace the pounding adrenaline of real combat. "Move fast," Amy said. "Every second counts. Remember New Horizon." Inside the station, the care commanders scrambled. They did not understand the humans. Every strike was precise. Every tactic seemed unpredictable. The humans attacked together, yet separately, overwhelming every defense. Captain Nolan's flagship fired concentrated volleys at shield generators. Paul Ramirez, the gunnery officer, worked tirelessly. Each shot he fired destroyed weapons or disabled engines. He did not count kills. Each small win brought humanity closer to the justice they sought. "They are not stopping!" a car officer shouted over comms. "They do not tire!" "They do not retreat." Nolan smiled grimly. He did not need to respond. His actions spoke for him. Human ships continued to hit critical points. The station's shields flickered, turrets went dark, and power lines exploded. Soon, human boarding teams were inside every major control room. Amy Foster and her team reached the main command bridge. They moved with careful speed, incapacitating guards and securing consoles. She activated a recording device. "This is humanity," she said. "We do not forgive attacks on civilians. Your aggression will end today. Surrender is an option, but if you fight, you will burn. Remember, New Horizon." Outside, explosions tore through the station. Energy beams cut deep into the hull. The car realized that they could not win. Their fleets had been stretched too thin. Human strikes were everywhere at once. Systems they thought safe were under attack. Supply lines were gone. Communication lines were destroyed. In the distance, Rachel Morris piloted her fighter through a debris field. A car battleship pursued her, its weapons blazing. She dodged, weaving through wreckage, and led it toward a trap. Human ships that had been hidden behind asteroids opened fire, tearing the ship apart. She felt no joy, only focus. The car had underestimated her. The humans had underestimated nothing. Back on the horizon's edge, Nolan watched the system fall under human control. Reports streamed in from multiple fronts. Every car military installation was being neutralized. Civilians were safe where possible, but the car's forces were suffering heavily. Human losses were real, but carefully measured. Every human casualty strengthened the resolve of others. Every survivor carried the memory of New Horizon, of friends, family, and colleagues lost. Admiral Miller observed the progress from Earth Command. He smiled faintly. Humanity's patience had paid off. The Car Dominion had thought that humans were weak, that they would accept annihilation quietly. They had been wrong. Every strike, every move, every tactic had taught them the truth. Humans were relentless. Across the galaxy, other species watched in fear. Some whispered about alliance with the humans, some about withdrawal. No one had seen a species fight like this. Humans did not seek conquest, but when attacked, they responded with overwhelming power, coordination, and endurance. On a destroyed world, Lisa Brown walked among the rubble with volunteers. She did not fight, but she helped rebuild. She planted memorial gardens and recorded the stories of survivors. She believed that human strength was not only in battle, but in remembering, in rebuilding, and in never forgetting. "They will know our will," she whispered to herself, "not just our weapons." Nolan's fleet continued its advance. They hit a major car fleet before it could escape a system. Human ships surrounded the enemy, forcing them into close combat. Boarding teams disabled weapons. Engineers sabotaged engines. Energy weapons tore through hulls. Every strike was coordinated and precise. Amy Foster led her boarding team onto the largest car battleship in the system. The corridors were dark, and alarms blared. She moved with careful steps. Each enemy soldier neutralized was another step toward victory. "Remember why we fight," she reminded her crew. "Remember New Horizon. They reached the command bridge and planted charges. The ship would be destroyed, and the human team would extract safely. Explosions tore through the hull. The battleship was lost, and the humans were gone. Paul Ramirez fired the final shots at the last operational turret of the fleet. It exploded in a ball of fire. He did not cheer. He simply checked his instruments and prepared for the next target. Human victory was measured in progress, not celebration. The Car Dominion tried to regroup. They sent a message to Earth, a plea for negotiation. Human command did not respond. They had no mercy to offer. The Car had chosen war by attacking civilians, and humans had learned that mercy would not prevent further attacks. Captain Nolan received reports of the final Car fleet breaking apart. Smaller ships tried to flee, but human forces intercepted them. Boarding teams captured ships intact where possible. The Car were learning that every action against humanity would meet retaliation tenfold. In orbit around a captured Car world, Amy Foster activated another recorder. "This is humanity," she said. "Your fleets will not rise again. Your attacks on civilians will be punished. This is our message to the galaxy. Do not underestimate humans. We endure, we adapt, and we fight." Claire Bennett coordinated the final strike plans from a nearby system. She had mapped every Car stronghold. Human fleets moved like clockwork, each ship knowing its role. Coordination, strategy, and endurance were humanity's greatest weapons. Everywhere humans fired their weapons. Not recklessly, but with precision. Every missile, every laser, every boarding pod was part of a greater plan. The Car Dominion's infrastructure crumbled under the weight of human retaliation. The galaxy burned in places, but it was not mindless destruction. It was the fire of justice, of revenge for those lost, of proof that humanity could not be broken. On the bridge of the horizon's edge, Captain Nolan looked at the reports. Systems fell, fleets surrendered, stations exploded. The Car Dominion would not rise again. He felt a quiet satisfaction. Victory had been earned, not given. "We remember New Horizon," he said to Amy Foster and Paul Ramirez. "Every life lost drives us. Every victory honors them." Amy nodded. "We made them pay." Paul grinned faintly. "And we're still standing." Rachel Morris looked out the viewport at the burning remnants of car ships. "They'll never forget us," she said softly. Nolan smiled. "They will remember humans forever. Not just as fighters, but as survivors. We do not break. We do not bow. We do not surrender." Across the galaxy, other species began to realize a hard truth. Humans were not a species to be conquered or ignored. They could lose worlds, families, and colonies, and still fight back stronger than before. They did not depend on fleets or technology alone. They depended on willpower, determination, and unity. Back on Earth, Admiral Miller watched the final reports. Humanity had struck every major Car installation. Fleets were destroyed, shipyards disabled, and the Dominion Central Command dismantled. He knew the humans had sent a message. "They will not threaten us again," he said quietly. "And the galaxy has learned a lesson." In orbit around a liberated system, Lisa Brown planted a tree on the barren surface, a symbol of life returning. They recorded the event for history, knowing that humanity's fight was not only in the stars, but in memory and rebuilding. "We will never forget," she whispered. "We will never forgive, if it is needed. We will endure." Captain Nolan's fleet moved on, ready to strike remaining resistance pockets. The galaxy burned, not from hate, but from human determination. Every system knew the name of humanity. Every species learned that attacking humans meant facing fire, relentless and precise. Amy Foster, Rachel Morris, and Paul Ramirez stood together on the horizon's edge. Their faces were tired, their bodies marked from battle, but their hearts were steady. They had fought for justice. They had fought for survival. They had fought for every life lost at New Horizon. "It is over," Amy said softly. "For now," Nolan replied, "but humanity will never stop defending itself." As human ships moved toward the edge of the galaxy, The stars seemed brighter. The fires of battle had shown what humans were capable of. They were survivors. They were fighters. They were a storm no one could ignore. And the galaxy burned, not from hatred, but from the force of human will. Humanity had answered the attack on New Horizon, and every corner of space would remember. The story of humans and the Card Dominion would be told for generations. It was not a story of conquest, but of endurance, of unity, and of the courage to rise after devastation. The galaxy had seen fire, and it had seen humans rise from the ashes. Humanity had won. Humanity had survived. And humanity would never be weak again.